All right, 7:01. Sorry, this is late coming to you. Lots and lots of things on the personal schedule. So let's get to it. We are going to talk about exponents, and before we do that, let's talk about this. So when we are multiplying, because there's three things that can happen. You can multiply exponents. When you multiply exponents, something like this, first of all, you need like bases. When you have like bases and you are multiplying them, what are you going to do with their exponents? You're going to add them. So that is one concept that you definitely need to understand. So that equals x to the fifth. Now, when multiplying exponents, you can also have coefficients, and I noticed a lot of people were struggling with this today. So you have negative x to the fourth, and let's say 5x to the third. So first of all, we have to deal with their coefficients, and we're going to deal with the coefficients different than how we're going to deal with the exponents. So coefficients, we're multiplying. So that's just -1. There's an invisible 1. -1 times 5. -1 times 5 is -5. Those are coefficients. It's if you, like you saw, -1 times 5, numbers. Now, when we multiply like bases, remember, if we're multiplying, we're going to add those exponents. So that's x to the 4 plus 3, which equals -5x to the 7th. Very important concept. Division or dividing. When we are dividing exponents, something like x to the 7th divided by x to the 2nd, you're going to subtract those exponents. Here's the important thing. It's the numerator minus, that division represents the minus, the denominator. We have 7 up here, we have 2 down here, so that would leave me with 5. This process takes place in the numerator. This is x to the 5th in the numerator. There are 5 x's multiplying each other up in the numerator. And that makes sense. If we look at this, we've got 2 down here, 7 up here. The leftovers would be 5 up there. That's important. Now the other part of that, you can have this, x to the 3rd over x to the 5th. And we're going to have x to the 3 minus 5, leaving us with x to the -2. That is in the numerator. This is in the numerator. This value, this evaluation, this notation is in the numerator. Now, what does that negative represent? Well, if we look at the starting problem, we got 3 here, 5 here. We've got more in the denominator. So this negative represents values or bases in the denominator. So this is equivalent to 1 over x to the 2nd. Because if we simplified that, we get this. If we use the shortcut of simplifying when dividing, we have this negative exponent. So very important. And then when we put coefficients in there, if we have 10x to the 3rd over 15x, we're going to deal with the coefficients different than how we're going to deal with the bases and their exponents. So this is just like if we saw 10 divided by 15 or 10 over 15. Well, that would be a fraction that would be reduced to 2/3. 10 over 15 reduces to 2/3. Then we have x to the 3 minus, there's an invisible 1. That takes place in the numerator. So this simplifies to 2x squared over 3. Really, really important for us to comprehend this and do this correctly. Way too many people struggled with that concept. And then power of powers. Power of powers. Power of powers looks like x to the 2nd to the third. And power of powers are going to have parentheses. So this is just going to be distributed in. That's a product because we have 3 of these. Well, if you have 3 of them, that's 2 times 3, which is 6. The next thing, again, we have, well, let's do the quantity of x to the third, y to the negative 2 to the second. So when we have a power out here, we are going to distribute it out to each item. So it goes to this term and this one. So it goes to both of these pieces. So that's going to be x to the 3 times 2. And then that's going to be y to the negative 2 times 2, which gives us x to the 6th, y to the negative 4. And now I can't have a negative exponent. So I'm going to have to move this base. If I change the sign, it moves this base in the exponent. This, very important, this is unaffected. This exponent is positive 6, so it's not being affected by that negative exponent. So this is going to equal x to the 6, stays in the numerator, and then this will go down into the denominator. So this now becomes y to the positive 4. I change the sign, and it goes to the other denominator. Good? And then the last one we can see is if you have 2 x to the second y, and we'll say that's to the third. So coefficients, we're going to distribute it to each of the pieces. That gets it, that gets it, that gets it. And this equals 2 to the 1 times 3, x to the 2 times 3, and y to the 1 times 3. 2 to the third, x to the 6th, y to the third. 2 to the third is not 2 times 3. It's 2 times 2 times 2, which is 4 times 2 is 8, x to the 6th, y to the third. So remember how exponents work. All right, with that being said, let's deal with the first problem. First problem, we're going to look at all the coefficients. This is negative 20, and then negative 20 times 6 is negative 120. So negative 120 are my coefficients. Now I'm going to look at my x's. X squared, x cubed, x to the negative 1. When we multiply them, we are going to add each of the exponents. And then we have this leftover. We also have y values. So we have to also do the y to the 3 plus negative 1. So that's negative 120. X to the, that's 2 plus 3 is 5, minus 1 is 4. This is 3 plus negative 1, which is 2. So this is my first answer. Again, coefficients first. Negative 2 times 6 times negative 2. That's negative 4, or that's positive 4 times 6 is positive 24. Let's look at the x values. X to the 1, there's a 1 there. X to the first, x to the third, x to the negative 2. Since we're multiplying all these, we are going to add each of those exponents. And then we have our y values again. We got y to the negative 1, y to the 0. So that's going to equal y to the negative 1 plus 0. That gives us 24x. That's 4 plus negative 2 is 2. Negative 1 plus 0 is negative 1. Now I can't have a negative exponent, so I have to take care of this. I need to move it. And I'm going to move its base. If I change the sign and move the base, all of this is in the numerator at the moment. I'm going to move this value down because I'm going to change that exponent. So it's 24x squared over y. I'm not going to write, do not write y to the first. We don't write y to the first. So my answer is this. You don't have to write y to the first. Good. Alrighty. Let's look at the coefficients. Now we're dividing. So we have a negative. Now that's not a negative exponent. This is a negative coefficient, which is just telling me direction. This is going to the left on the number line. And then we have 3 over 6. Negative coefficients are completely different than negative exponents. Negative coefficients tell me direction. Negative exponent tell me locations. So if we have negative 3 over 6, that's just going to equal negative 1/2. You can do it in the numerator, you can do it in the denominator, or you can just do it right outside. I don't care which one. Let's move that down so we can draw. So I'm going to just do this at the moment. I may end up erasing it and bringing it down to the denominator. Now we're going to deal with the variables. We're going to deal with x to the second and x to the negative 1. So x to the 2 minus, because that's the division, 2 minus negative 1. And then we have our y's. Y to the negative 1 divided by y to the second. Y to the negative 1 divided by 2. Okay, so this is going to simplify. I'm going to actually, because I don't want to write a negative 1. That's kind of silly. Right, well, I'm going to move that negative down. I'm going to put it here because we're going to see that this 1's going to go away, and I don't want the negative up there, so it's just easier to put it down there. So I have x to the 2 minus negative 1, which is 2 plus 1. So you have x to the third. We have y to the negative 1 minus 2, which is y to the negative 3 over negative 2. I'm going to deal with this negative, and that is going to move it down into the denominator. So that's going to move down, giving me x cubed over negative 2y to the third. Since I moved it down, it became positive and it's in the denominator. Same thing. Let's deal with the coefficients. 2, negative 4. That reduces to 1 over negative 2. Deal with the a's. Negative 2 and negative 2. So that would be a to the negative 2 minus negative 2. And then you have your b squared. So we're going to get rid of this one because it's not really doing anything. This is negative 2 minus negative 2, which is a to the 0, b to the second over negative 2. And we know that a to the 0 equals 1. That simplifies to 1. 1 times b squared is just b squared. So b squared over negative 2 would be my final answer. Here we're distributing. We have an exponent. We're going to distribute that to each of the pieces. This cubed right here, this is only affecting this variable. That's the base of that exponent. Negative 2 is to the first, u is to the first, v is to the negative 3. So do not distribute this in. This is the only one. So this gives us the quantity of negative 2 to the 1 times 2, u to the 1 times 2, and v to the negative 3 times 2. That's negative 2 to the second. That is u to the second, and v to the negative 6. So if we look at the quantity of negative 2 to the second, that's negative 2 times negative 2. It's this base 2 times, which equals 4. So this is 4u squared v to the negative 6. Now I'm going to get rid of that negative exponent by moving it down into the denominator. So my answer is 4u squared over v to the 6th. The only thing that moves is the v, because that's the base of the -6 exponent. So this isn't interesting. We can distribute, and I'll show it both ways. We'll distribute. That's -3 to the -1, x to the -1 times -1, and y to the 2 times -1. So this now, if I'm going to deal with this exponent, this is going to go down into the denominator. That's going to go down. So we get -3 in the denominator. This is going to be x to the +1, and this is going to be y to the -2. So now I have to also move this down into the denominator. So this is going to go down, leaving me with x over -3 y squared. Good? Cool. Okay, so I got all this stuff. I'm going to simplify these two first. I'm going to look at the coefficients. I got a -1 and I got a 3. So if I simplify that, that's -1 times 3, which is -3. I'm going to deal with my x's. That's multiplying. So multiplying is x to the 3 plus -3. And so multiplication means addition. And then we'll do the y squares and y to the -3. We're still multiplying. So that is y to the 2 plus -3. And that's all over this. This stays the same. We haven't touched this yet. So let's simplify that. That's 3x to the 3rd, y to the 3rd over. So that's -3. That's x to the 0. This is y to the -1. So let's deal with the coefficients. This looks like problem number 3. Coefficients, that makes -1. We're going to deal with the variables. We're dividing. So dividing is subtraction. So that's x to the 3 minus 0. And let's deal with the y's. So that would be y to the 3 minus -1, which is negative x to the 3rd, y to the 4th. That would be our answer. Good? Good. Same thing. Oh, not same thing. Yeah. Well, let's do it this way. Let's keep it simple. Let's keep it simple. Let's not confuse. Let's just deal with this. We're going to multiply it. So coefficient, coefficient. So the tops, we're not dealing with the top yet. So we have -4 times 3, which is -12. We have, not that color. We have a to the 1st, a to the 3rd, which gives us a to the 1st plus 3. So -4 a squared b to the -1 over -12 a to the 4th. So let's deal with coefficients. Coefficients, -4 over -12 is 1 over 3. That's 1 over 3. Two negatives make a positive. Then we have a squared minus 4, and then we have b to the -1. So this one doesn't go anywhere. You got a to the 2 minus 4. 2 minus 4 is -2, b to the -1 over 3. So we got to deal with these negative exponents. That's going to go down. This is going to go down. Both of those terms go down. So what's left in the numerator? A 1. 3a squared b would be our answer. We can simplify. We could distribute it, Or we can simplify. I'd much rather simplify before distributing. I'm doing coefficients. Then I'm going to do b's. And I'm not going to forget my a's also. So I'm just simplifying. So 4 times negative 2 is negative 8. I'm going to do my a to the negative 2. And I'm going to do my b's. I'm multiplying, so I'm going to add the exponents, and then that's to the second power. So this gives me negative 8a squared b to the negative 3 squared. 1 plus negative 4 is negative 3. Now I'm going to distribute this into the parentheses. I'm going to distribute it to each of the 3 pieces, giving me quantity of negative 8 to the 1 times 2, a to the 2 times 2, and b to the negative 3 times 2. Negative 8 squared, a to the 4th, b to the negative 6th. Negative 8 squared is 64. A to the 4th, b to the negative 6. I'm going to deal with that negative exponent by moving it down, giving me 64, a to the 4th, b to the 6th. That wasn't too bad. All right, number 10. We've got 2 distributions, so I'm going to distribute this separately to this. So that's going to get distributed to these 3 things. This is going to get distributed to these 3 things. That is the quantity of negative 2 to the second, u to the 2 times 2, v to the 4 times 2, times 3 to the second, u to the negative 2 times 2, and v to the 0 times 2. This is positive 4, u to the 4th, v to the 8th, times 9, u to the negative 4, v to the 0. That's a bad 0. To the 0. What? Did the same one. 0. All right, let's do coefficients. 4 times 9 is 36. That is u. Doesn't look like a u. That's a bad u. U to the 4th, u to the negative 4. Since we're multiplying, we're going to add those. U to the 4 plus negative 4. And then we have v to the 8th, v to the 0, which is v to the 8 plus 0. So 36, u to the 0, v to the 8th. And u to the 0 equals 1, so that's 36 times 1 times v to the 8th, which just still becomes 36 v to the 8th. Last one, I think. All right. Maybe not. Maybe we go to 13. Nothing can be done. Again, do not let this negative 4 fool you. That is just to that base. So the numerator cannot be simplified. That's 3a squared b to the negative 4. This one can. Now I can do 2 things. I can move this up or I can just deal with it. I'm going to deal with it. That's 2 to the negative 3, a to the negative 3, and b to the negative 1 times negative 3. It's going to get a little complicated. 3a squared b to the negative 4 over 2 to the negative 3. I can't simplify that. No way you can simplify negative exponents. This is still a to the negative 3. This becomes b to the 3rd. All right, let's deal with the negative exponents. That's what we've done all the time. This has to go up. If I'm going to change the sign, it has to change the location. I'm going to deal with this exponent. That negative, if I change the sign, I have to change the location. That's going to go up. And then we have this 3rd one, which this one, I'm going to change the sign. so I have to change the location. That's going to go down. So keeping track of everything. 3 stays, a square stays. This is going to become 2 to the third. This is also coming up, so that's a to the third. Once it goes up, it changes its sign. This is going to go down with this one, so we have b to the third and b to the positive 4. It changes from negative to positive when it changes location. So let's deal with coefficients. 3 times 2 is 6. We have a squared and a to the third, a to the 2 plus 3 over, we've got our b, 3 plus 4. So that's 6a to the 5th, b to the 7th. Not bad. Not bad at all. Let's just highlight these just to show that we're getting that. Oh, I thought we were done. 12, is there a 13? Oh, there is. There's 2 more problems. All right. Let's simplify inside before distributing. Could we distribute? Sure. So I'm going to simplify this. Well, the only thing we can simplify with coefficients are the 2 negatives. A negative divided by a negative is a positive. So this just equals 2 over 3. Those coefficients can't simplify any further. We have a to the first divided by a to the second. So that's a to the 1 minus 2. And then we have b to the 4th, which doesn't have a partner. And then cubed. So this is 2a to the negative 1, b to the 4th, over 3 to the 3rd. So now let's distribute this. Let's distribute it to all of the pieces. There are 4 pieces that we're going to distribute it to. 1, 2, 3, and the 4th one down there. So that's 2 to the 3rd. That's a to the negative 1 times 3, b to the 4 times 3, over 3 to the 3rd. 2 to the 3rd is 8, a to the negative 3, b to the 12th, over 3 to the 3rd is 27. I got to deal with that negative exponent, so that's going to go down. So we get 8 b to the 12th over 27, and a goes down there and becomes a positive exponent. Okay? Last one. All right. This negative is a coefficient. We can attach it to the 4. That's what I would do. I would attach this to the 4 and multiply it by the negative 2. So we get negative 4 times negative 2, which equals 8. We have m by itself. There's no partner for m at the moment. And then we have n to the negative 3 and n to the 2nd, which are multiplying. So negative 4 times negative 2 is 8. We have m squared, and then we have n to the negative 3 plus 2 all over. And let's do 2. We can get sophisticated and advanced. We can get a little sassy. So let's distribute this while we're working, saving ourselves time. So this is negative 3 squared. This is m to the negative 4 times 2. So we have 8 m squared n to the negative 1 over negative 3 times negative 3. This is a coefficient. This isn't going to move up. We're not moving the location. This is a direction, not a location, because it's a coefficient. Negative 3 squared is 9. And this is m to the negative 8. So I can't simplify the coefficients. I have like variables that are dividing. M to the 2nd divided by m to the negative 8. This process takes place in the numerator. 2 minus, that's the division, and then this is the exponent. And then we have n to the negative 1. So this is 8 m to the 10th n to the negative 1 over 9. 2 minus negative 8 is positive 10. And now we got to deal with this negative exponent, so we're going to change its location. That's going to go down. So my final answer is 8 m to the 10th, 9 over 9 n. We wouldn't write n to the first. Okay. Hopefully that worked for you guys. Lots of practice problems available to you. So good luck. I'll see you tomorrow.